Hey everybody, what's going on, and welcome to Rock Gamer. And to close out 2015, I thought what better thing to do than do a year in review of all things Rock Band 4. And you know, it's been an exciting year for Rock Band 4 fans, and I think we've got a lot to look forward to in 2016. You know, Harmonix has teased us with some of the things they're looking at doing and some of the things we can expect in 2016. But let's look at 2015. So it was early 2015, and you know, a lot of people were just disappointed that there was no Rock Band game in sight for the next generation of consoles. If you were like me, you were probably playing your old DLC and maybe you dabbled a bit in the customs community. And, you know, and then all of a sudden we start hearing rumblings that Harmonix is working on Rock Band 4. It's reported across Bloomberg News, it's reported by GameSpot and IGN. But Harmonix basically puts out a press release saying, oh, well, we're just basically... we'd love to bring Rock Band 4 back, but the timing would have to be right, and, you know, we haven't abandoned the series, we're just taking a break from it. And it wasn't until January 21st, 2015, we finally saw a glimmer of what could be in the future for Rock Band 4. And we got the first DLC announced for Rock Band 3 in 21 months. We had 3 songs announced from Avenged Sevenfold, Foo Fighters, and a band who's never been in Rock Band before, which was the Arctic Monkeys. And Harmonix, strangely enough, didn't admit they were working on Rock Band 4. They just said, hey, we got an opportunity to work with these artists. We wanted to see if we could still put out weekly DLC, and it turns out we're able to. And then we waited another month, and we started to hear more rumblings of Rock Band 4 possibly in development. And then in February, we get another DLC pack announced. It's only 2 songs, but it features Weezer and Rise of the Phoenix. Now, if you look a bit closer at the song choices, we have Back to the Shack from their latest album, and then we also had Rise of the Phoenix from Tenacious D. And if you look at the song meanings, it's a lot about going back to one's roots, rebirth, that kind of stuff. And it basically was a hint that, hey, Rock Band 4 is coming. And it wasn't until March 5th of this year that we got a free DLC track, Frank Turner's I Still Believe. Strangely enough, this song was actually leaked early. Somebody was able to notice it in the music store or on one of the Xbox or PlayStation stores, but nobody really knew what to make of it. And with that release of DLC came the announcement that, hey, Rock Band 4 is in development, it is coming out for next-gen consoles, and it will be out later this year. And I think if you were like me, you were super excited. There wasn't a whole lot of information revealed. We did learn that your old DLC would work. They were working on making your old instruments compatible, and we learned that Pro Guitar and Pro Keys would not be making an appearance in the next generation of Rock Band 4. And some people were disappointed. I personally was kind of on the fence. Like, on one hand, it's nice to have keys if you have like a lot of people over because it's an extra instrument to play, but I felt like the keys sort of watered down the set list and the DLC choices. And I thought Pro Guitar, if you want to play professional guitar or just learn how to play guitar, go buy Rocksmith. You're not going to get the same kind of party feel with Rocksmith, but it's a teaching tool. Same day that Rock Band 4 was announced, Harmonix actually released a trailer for the game. And, you know, the funny thing about the trailer is there was no footage of Rock Band 4 to be found. It was just the developers talking about how excited they were to be working on Rock Band again and how this is going to be the first Rock Band game that they don't really have a big overlord like EA or Viacom or MTV watching over their shoulder, sort of nudging the direction in which they want the game to go. So they said this is going to be the real first Rock Band game where we get complete creative control. Around this time, though, interestingly enough, that there hadn't really been a publisher announced for Rock Band 4. We learned that Harmonix was kind of shopping it around. They were working with Mad Catz on the instruments, but they didn't really know who was going to publish the game. And then we finally learned that Mad Catz would become the eventual publisher for the game. And, you know, about a month went by. We didn't learn too much about the game. We did learn that IGN would be doing a May reveal of the game, which basically... the whole month of May will be dedicated to Rock Band 4 content. We learn new things about the graphics engine. We get a first sneak peek at the set list. We had 6 songs announced, including Jack White. We had Fleetwood Mac. We had a bunch of other songs as well. And then we also got to see some of the new features, such as the vocal freestyle. And then we also got to see the new kind of fill system that they've implemented. We also got the great announcement that Harmonix was working with a group called the Harmonix Project. If you guys ever dabbled with customs, you'll know that they were a great group of guys who added harmonies to all legacy DLC before Rock Band 3, and all those songs were upgraded with harmonies. Harmonix confirmed they were working with this group, and all legacy DLC was going to have harmonies in the game as well. So this was a huge announcement for a lot of like hardcore fans who actually enjoy the Harmony system. Interestingly enough, none of the actual previews that showed Rock Band 4's gameplay ever showed the Harmony system, which was really strange to me. I feel like maybe they wanted to show a simplified game to like not alienate the casual audiences. Interestingly enough, we also saw some features that actually didn't end up in the final game, like the drummer count-ins and the ability to talk to the crowd. Now, the version that they actually showed off at the Maylong reveal was kind of disappointing to a lot of fans. I don't think a lot of fans understood that it was a pre-alpha version, meaning that the game's in a really early state and it's not going to be looking that way when it actually launches later on in the year. It was a very early build of the game, and a lot of people are complaining about the graphics, but it's a very early build of the game. All the features hadn't been put in the game at that point. And, you know, after May, we started to get into E3, and it was funny. Just before E3 happened, Harmonix did like a press event where they had all these journalists come out to California, and they showed off the game and some of the new features that they hadn't announced yet. And at E3, the plan was for them to actually announce freestyle guitar solos. And the funny thing is, I noticed before E3 that one of the interviews with game trailers actually showed the freestyle guitar solos in the background, but they hadn't announced what those were yet. And I put up a video basically showing that the freestyle guitar solo, and I was like, oh, it looks like Harmonix is doing like a freestyle chart of some sort with a guitar. And I kid you not, I got an email from Nick Chester probably a couple hours after I uploaded my video asking me to remove it because they didn't want to ruin this reveal for E3. So I was nice enough to remove it, but Nick guaranteed me, because he's a great guy, he said that, you know, we'll have some more exciting info for you later on. And I think he was alluding to the Rock Band Road Crew, which maybe they had planned at that point in time. But E3 came, you know, they basically showed off the same build at E3. They had a cool little stage setup at E3. They showed off the freestyle guitar solos, and they released a new trailer for the game. And the freestyle guitar solos really intrigued a lot of people. We also learned at the same time that the bassist would probably get no new features. So if you're a bass player, just shut up and play bass, and that's basically it. They also showed off some prototypes of the new instruments as well. And it was around this time we started to hear rumblings about online play, or the lack thereof. Harmonix was asked a number of times in interviews about like, hey, what kind of new modes are you guys going to have with online play? And they basically said, well, we're not going to do online play in the traditional sense, but we're going to be having some new social and competitive features not seen before. And that's where a lot of people, including myself, were like, whoa, you're not going to have online play. You know, how is that going to work if you want to play with your friends who don't live in the same area as you? And they basically said, well, Rock Band 4 is going to be a platform. We're not going to be doing yearly disc releases, but some of the content that may not be available at launch could come later on in the form of DLC. But as E3 sort of finished, we tended to get into the PAX season, and then we finally saw a new build of the game, which is probably similar to what you have in the final product. The visuals look a lot different. The Note Highway looked a lot shinier. The gems looked a bit different too, and the graphics just looked a little more polished. As we got into the summer, we started to learn more information about the game, like the price, which was really expensive. You know, this was probably the most expensive Rock Band game to come out to date. We also learned that if you bought the band bundle, you would be getting 30 free songs, most of which had already been released as DLC or were present on disc for previous Rock Band releases. We also learned that if you pre-ordered the game digitally on either the Xbox One or the PS4, you'd get about 10 free songs. And some people were a little disappointed with that. You know, some people felt it was unfair that people who paid way more money for the actual band bundle would get only 30 free songs, most of which were already available, and the people who just got the digital version would get 10 brand new songs that hadn't been previously released. But rest assured, those songs were released as DLC on day one when Rock Band 4 came out. Then we started to get into September, and then Harmonix announced what would be known as the Rock Band Road Crew. So it's a new way of marketing the game, where they'd use the community to actually help get the word out there about the game, and people who were selected for the road crew would actually get a free band bundle and play the game ahead of everybody else. So in order to enter, you had to do like you had to submit a video, and there was a number of criteria you had to meet. I was fortunate enough to get accepted on the Rock Band Road Crew, and there was gigs every week you'd have to complete, from like tweeting out a message to like, you know, putting a photo on Instagram and so forth. And you know, it was a really cool way to get the game early. I got it about 3-4 days before everybody else did, and I got a free band bundle, which was really great. And it went on even after launch. I think it ended like the first week of December or so. And you know, October 6th is when Rock Band 4 came out, and it was met with reasonably good reviews. It got about 80% or 79% on Metacritic. Most people praise the game for the fact that it, you know, allowed you to use your old DLC and your old instruments, and they did like the new shows mode and the freestyle guitar solos, but it also got criticized at the same time for the lack of features. A lot of missing things from past games like online play, setlist creator, practice mode. It was also, a lot of people did tend to like the RPG element of the story mode as well. A lot of people criticized the soundtrack. They said the soundtrack just was not as strong as previous games, and that was kind of the fault of Harmonix because they'd released so many great songs as DLC, so they didn't have as many songs to pick from compared to like when they released Rock Band 2 or 3. At the same time, it was found that Harmonix employees were actually writing favorable reviews on Amazon, and this turned into a whole scandal where they were purposely bumping up the rating of the game in order to probably persuade people to actually go buy the game for the holiday season. And Harmonix claimed that they didn't really give any direction to their employees. This was done on their employees' own. It just wasn't really something that was endorsed by the company itself. It was around this time that we also started to learn reports that Mad Catz financially was not doing so well and that they needed Rock Band 4 to be a success. That caused a lot of people in the community to worry, including myself, but surely enough, in the month of October, Rock Band 4 was the 10th best-selling game across all platforms. It actually beat Guitar Hero Live, which was number 11. Now, granted, Guitar Hero Live was only out for a week in October compared to 2 or 3 weeks for Rock Band 4, but at the same time, Guitar Hero Live was available on 3 times the number of platforms that Rock Band 4 was. After launch, Harmonix was supporting Rock Band 4 with weekly DLC, similar to their old model. And we've seen some great bands that haven't been previously announced on the game, including U2, which will be coming later on. We also got Van Halen, we got Aerosmith, we got The Weeknd, which we never thought we'd see. And the interesting part is not only are we getting DLC, but we've also been getting feature upgrades too. So the December 8th upgrade, we got the new Brutal mode, as well as some new enhancements too for the score tracking and player stats. And we also had a new Rock Band game announced just a couple weeks ago called Rock Band VR for the Oculus Rift. It's probably going to be coming out for PC, it appears, but we don't really have any other info other than that. We do know that Dragon Force will be in the game, but that was basically it. And then we had Harmonix announce some of the things that they're going to be looking at for 2016, including a slew of features that were in Rock Band 3 that were not in Rock Band 4. And the possible return of online play, which I'm the most excited about. So that's basically the Rock Band 4 year in review, or the just general Rock Band news year in review for 2015. What are some of your more memorable moments from this past year from the world of Rock Band? Comment in the section below, guys. I want to wish you guys a happy new year and happy holidays. And make sure you subscribe for all things rhythm gaming related. Take care.